Good morning. How's everybody doing?
Great.
Is it warm enough for everybody yet? We're getting there, right? Well, this is a really, really important day, and I've got to say I was a little surprised that we needed to do this, but very, very grateful that we got the partnership, that we got to come here and talk about this. I want to thank Fire Chief Powers, Sheriff Waters, and really especially State Senator Audrey Gibson, who really came up with the idea of needing to do this public service announcement. So it is one of those things that I'm hoping that all of you in the media are going to help us push out. It's extremely important that we emphasize the proper procedure when you see a first responder on the road. Sounds like it's automatic, right? But it's really not. We've all been there. You're driving around, out of nowhere, an ambulance or a police officer comes up, and you may freeze. The sirens are blaring. You don't know what to do. Always the thing to do is to pull over. We are not disconnected. We are not disconnected. But I want to share a couple of statistics with you that really sort of surprised me. So just last month, just in the month of July, almost 30 first responder vehicles were struck by at-fault drivers. 30 in 1 month were struck by at-fault drivers. 3 JFRD vehicles and 25 JSO vehicles. That's crazy and so preventable. It is the law in Florida to move out of the way when you see an emergency vehicle coming your way. And trust me, the minor inconvenience that folks have. I know you're in a hurry, you're 5 minutes late. You want to get to work, you want to get to where you're going, and so you just say, I'm gonna try to either outrace them or don't do it. The idea is, if you just take that few minutes, that not even a few minutes, few seconds really, to pull over and let that vehicle come on by, not only are you going to keep these heroes safer, but you're going to make sure that person who's trying to get to the hospital perhaps makes it as opposed to doesn't make it. I mean, that's a really big deal. So it's very, very important that you do that you gotta pull over whenever you see them. So I want you to know that when you block a first responder, you're also putting yourself at risk. A lot of people get injured in these accidents, and then it's a whole another job for these folks to have to deal with. So moving your vehicle out of a way and paying attention to the emergency vehicles around you is just common sense, and something that we hope that we can spread around the community and make sure that everybody's very aware of what they need to do. So I want to thank again this wonderful group behind me. I'm going to turn it over now to Chief Powers, who's going to tell you a little bit more.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Sheriff. And I really want to thank Senator Gibson. When we were sitting at the budget table presenting our budget, this is one of her passions, to make sure that we protect our first responders. So, Senator, thank you for helping us with this. Moving over for emergency vehicles can be broken into two areas. We think about move over as like when we're responding and you need to pull off to the side of the road and pull out of the way, but there's two different areas that move over we need to talk about. Moving over or yielding the right of way to any authorized emergency vehicle. In that case, when the driver should yield the right of way to the emergency vehicle and shall immediately proceed to a position parallel to or as close as possible to the closest edge of the curb or roadway, and clear of any intersection, and shall stop and remain in that position until the authorized emergency vehicle goes by. That's the first move over part of this law that we're talking about, but there's a second part as well, and this is also protecting the safety of our first responders. And that's when our emergency vehicles are sitting on the side of the road, moving over away from those vehicles and away from those personnel that are working at that scene, so that we don't strike first responders. Just recently, and I think the sheriff may talk about this, but just recently we had 2 JSO officers that were working up here on 95 a month and a half ago that were struck by a vehicle while they were working an accident scene that required hospitalization. Now, thankfully, they're okay, but that's what we're trying to do, is protect these first responders that are working in these dangerous areas. So remember, in the case of when they're on the side of the road, you shall vacate the closest lane to the emergency vehicle and move over out of that way, and slow down to reduce the speed to 20 miles under the posted speed limit, where the posted speed limit is 25 miles an hour or greater. Or travel at 5 miles per hour when the posted speed limit is 20 miles per hour or less. And that's when you're driving on a 2-lane road or greater. So again, I've had personal experience with this, almost getting hit on the side of the road, asking for your help for the public help in protecting our first responders who are here to protect us. And if they get in an accident when responding because somebody didn't move over, then that slows the response, as the mayor said, to getting to that person that's called 911. And that's what we're here to do, is to serve the public and get to them in their times of need. So with that, I'll turn it over to Sheriff Waters.
Thanks, Keith. Thank you, Keith. Thank you, Mayor Deegan, Senator Gibson. So after over 3 decades of service in this space, I know that law enforcement is dangerous work, and we expect it. When my sisters and brothers and I raised our hands to serve our community, we all knew that we might be faced with the prospect of bartering our own lives in defense of the public that we serve. That's a danger that we readily accept. I think everyone behind us, all of us, we readily accept that. And although our collective work in public service provides personal risk, we can and should mitigate some of the danger. Florida's Move Over Law offers means to lessen the danger officers and firefighters face each day in service of the public that we serve by simply adhering to the statutes and requirements of moving out of the way of emergency vehicles. You greatly reduce the possibility of injury or death to first responders, and moreover, by simply following this law, you allow first responders to provide critical services more quickly to community members at their time of the greatest need. Also, by adhering to the statute's requirements of moving out of the way of emergency vehicles, you greatly reduce the possibility of injury or death to yourself and first responders. Move over and help first responders safely and efficiently serve your community. So Keith just mentioned a couple incidents, and there was one that really rang out to me a couple years back, where one of our evidence technicians was working a fatality crash, a crash that took place, and he was measuring the distance and the speeds, and he was doing the things that was necessary when he was struck by a car, and he was almost killed after being struck by that car. It took him several years to get his way back to work. We had an officer struck, like Keith mentioned, a couple months ago, a couple weeks ago, 2 of them. And just this weekend, I went to on another scene, and the officer was struck while going to an emergency call. He was T-boned inside of an intersection. This is very, very dangerous. Our firefighters risk themselves to go and help others. Our police officers do the same. Please watch out for them. Please allow them the safety to be able to get to where they need to get to help others. We appreciate that. We look forward to working with our community to do better. Thank you.
Well, thank you. Good morning. And thank you so much, Mayor Deegan, for inviting me this morning. I really appreciate that. And thank you so much, Chief, and thank you so much, Sheriff. And thank you to our firefighters who really and our JSO officers, all of whom really put their lives on the line on a daily basis. And so as we were going through the budget meetings, and certainly learning from Chief Powers that, of course, response time is critical. And they wanted to make sure that they could meet the standards or be above the standards to make sure their response times were on target. Because what people don't think about sometimes, and I've seen this personally more than once, which is why I raised it, people are trying to make the light. They don't know what to do. People are stuck together in side-by-side lanes, and so the emergency vehicles obviously cannot get through. The other thing that I thought about and wanted to make sure that was raised in this area, and public safety was certainly a part of the mayor's priorities, and public safety goes beyond just adding law enforcement, right? It goes into the entire community. And so for the PSA to help individuals make sure that they understand what they're supposed to do. It's not to speed up to try to make the light. The light will change again for you. So wait and think about this. This is what the biggest message I want the community to understand is, what if it were you that emergency vehicle was coming to help? What if it's your house that's on fire? What if you're in the accident and laying on the side of the road and the JSO is trying to get there, as well as our firefighters and paramedics? So this really is what this is all about. And thank you all for what you're gonna do to help spread the message in the community. Thank you.
Florida State Statute 316.126 states, upon the approach of an authorized emergency vehicle that is responding to an emergency and is giving audible signals such as sirens and horns, or visible signals such as flashing lights, drivers are to yield the right of way, clear any intersection, and stop, remaining in position until the emergency vehicle has completely passed. For the sake of those that call 911 for help, and for the safety of first responder personnel, please yield the right of way when encountering emergency apparatus. Florida State Statute 316.126 states,
Anybody have any questions? Seems pretty self-explanatory, but happy. How about for whom?
It could be for the sheriff. What is the penalty for someone who would not stop or do a move over policy? And the difference if someone gets hurt, what would be the punishment by the law?
It's a moving violation. And I have to look up the fine for you, but it is a moving violation that we will absolutely enforce.
And in case of an injury,
Same thing. Same thing. And then you could face, depending on the level of the injury, you could face other charges. Depending on if someone dies, then it changes the whole complexion of the charge. Yeah. Depending on state attorneys and all that stuff. Yes, sir.
Also, I know you mentioned 30 first responders last month hit by people failing to move over. Obviously, that's 30 too many. Is that also high comparatively to surrounding counties, or what you typically see?
Well, what you see usually, our county's large. When we have a large fire apparatus, we have a large police department, sheriff's office, and we're a 24-hour, 7-day-a-week operation. It's high. I think we're doing pretty good, but we can do better. So I think this is very timely, and I think it's very needed. For me? Okay.
This is traffic related. School's getting started back up next week. Okay, so we'll be stepping up its enforcement of traffic within school zones.
Oh yeah, 100%. So I'll let you on a little secret. I'm a former traffic officer, so I believe in it, and we are going to do that. Well, like I said, and I said this a bunch of times over and over again, our kids are our most precious resource, and we're going to make sure that they're safe. And we're looking at some other things that are very, very interesting for us to add in that space.
Thank you all very much.